Unmute.
Good luck. Bye.
We are live.
So if you've come to this spot on Facebook, we are going to wait a few seconds, maybe a minute, before we get started to see if we get more participants to sign in. You're in the right place. We're going to talk about income taxes and the reporting for students. You've arrived at Legal Aid of Arkansas, and we are getting ready to talk about income taxes for students. This is Legal Aid of Arkansas. You've come to the right place. We're going to start shortly. Hello, and welcome to the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic's Facebook Live, brought to you by Legal Aid of Arkansas. My name is Jennifer Gardiner, and I'm the director of the tax clinic at Legal Aid. We represent low-income taxpayers in their controversies with the IRS, and we also educate taxpayers in their tax rights and responsibilities. If you have a question at any time during this brief presentation, even if you're watching it recorded, please submit it to us right away on Facebook, and we will get our panel to answer it either live if you're on us with us live, or later when you watch this. So today I have Brette N Gollihare from the LITC at Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma. And behind the scenes, I have our outreach coordinator here at Legal Aid of Arkansas, LITC, Joan Camerlingo. Here's a brief overview of the topics we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about FAFSA, the financial aid form, filing requirements, scholarships, tax credits, being a dependent while you're in college, how to file, what forms you need, creating an account online with the IRS, and checking your status on the Where's My Refund tool. All of this in under 30 minutes in our brief presentation today. Before we get to our student topics, we have our monthly news flash, and the most important news flash is that since we have been on Facebook Live, EITC refunds have started to go out. They started going out at the end of February as authorized by Congress, that they can't go out before that. The EITC is the Earned Income Tax Credit. If you haven't filed your tax return, this is a very good bonus for you that is claimed on a tax return. And your tax return would also include claiming dependents on your tax return, which we're going to get to. Normally, your filing status is something we wanted to talk about. Normally, as a student, we're going to assume that you're a single taxpayer and not a joint filer. So you're going to be filing as single is going to be your tax filing status on your income tax return while you are going to college. So we're going to start with seemingly to me, the complicated part, which is the free application for federal student aid, and that's called the FAFSA for short. Basically, you access this form online. The website is studentaid.gov, and everyone who's filing to get any sort of student loan, student scholarships, any kind of money for going to college should fill out this form. Now, Joan has told me that even those who aren't filing for financial aid should fill this out, only because some of the schools ask for it, even if you're not applying for student loan aid. We're going to assume that you're going to file it, but you really don't have to by law. So if they're asking for it and you just don't want to fill it out, because you don't want to get a loan, you don't want to get a scholarship, then just let the school know that you're not applying, and they just keep looking for it until you tell them. So it's really important that you file this form to get student loan aid, to get financial aid, early in your application process to go into a school. The filing period is between October 1st and June 3rd. But if you are applying for a school, way before June 30th, make sure you get your application in for student aid and fill it out and make it complete, even before you apply to the school, so you know where you stand financially, what kind of aid you might be eligible for, and then you can make a more informed decision when you're going to apply for school, and what kind of obligations that you have, or the family contribution towards the price of going to college. Then when the school replies back to you, you'll have a complete picture. There is a processing time, so get it in. It's not instantaneous. You have to agree that the schools, that the FAFSA people can access the IRS data to confirm what you're putting in the form. So it's not optional. You have to agree to that. If you don't agree to that, they're not going to process it. The form, I keep saying the form because it's hard to say the acronym. The form must include all of your family income, the entire household. That's your nuclear family. That's your parental income and the student income. That can get complicated. It can be multifaceted, especially, for example, if there's step parents or something else involved, but you can't do it on your own without including your parents. I guess unless you're completely emancipated, but that's a whole nother story. So the schools, as I mentioned, the schools use this form to make their aid packages. Therefore, get that in early so that your school can let you know you're in and what your aid package is. This year, Jill let me know that there were a lot of processing problems on the website already, and therefore a lot of schools have pushed the May 1st decision deadline. That is when you need to get back to a school and say, I'm going there or not going there, from May 1st to May 15th because of the FAFSA debacle, that their delays. They revamped their website and it got messy and they weren't getting things through. So you get another 2 weeks to get back to some colleges. Check with your school if that decision deadline has been postponed. I keep mentioning Joan. Joan is our outreach coordinator. She also works for the Rogers school system, and she is, in my opinion, an expert in this field. Keep her email address if you have a specific question for her. and her email is right here on the slide. So I'm now going to turn this presentation over to my colleague in Oklahoma. Brette, take it away.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Brette N Gollihare. As she said, just a little bit about me. I went to undergrad at Oklahoma State University. I completely bleed orange, but then I switched allegiances, not switched allegiances, but I went to law school at the University of Oklahoma. I graduated from law school in 2016 and have been practicing since then. I was in private practice for a couple of years and then have been at Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma for the last 5.5 years. Here, I'm the clinic director for the Low Income Tax Clinic in Oklahoma. It's a statewide clinic, and we represent individuals with tax controversies in all 77 counties. I am physically located in Tulsa, but can represent anyone in the state of Oklahoma. And I'm just going to provide a little bit of information today about some of the things that affect students more than differently than other taxpayers. So I just wanted to start with, do I need to file? And there's several reasons that you may want to file, even if you're not required to file. One of those is if you've had withholdings taken out of your paycheck and you maybe do a refund, or if you're entitled to refundable credits, which we may talk about a little bit later.
Brette, sorry, I was waiting for your pause. I have a question. How do I know if I have withholding?
Well, generally you will get a W-2 and it will indicate, but many employers provide pay stubs and it shows how much is taken out at each paycheck. And usually when you start your job, you complete a W-4, a form that tells the employer how much you want taken out or what your household looks like. And so, but you will get a W-2 at the end of the year that shows how much your withholdings are.
Got it.
You may also want to file because you need to, if you're self-employed in particular, you want those wages on record for Social Security way in the future, or for financial aid purposes, like we mentioned with the FAFSA. And if you're looking to buy a house or financing at the bank, there's lots of reasons you may want to file, just peace of mind. But the people that have to file, you're required to file if your income is more than the standard deduction. So considering a traditional student, many students that are in their early years of college are single, they haven't married yet. The standard deduction for a single individual is $13,850 in 2023. Now that is adjusted each year and it will go up a little bit. But if you earned more than that, then you do need to file. You also may need to file if you have over $1,100 of unearned income, interest, things like that. You would need to file, or if you have more than $400 of net self-employment income. And now this can include things in the gig economy, like DoorDash or food delivery services or rideshare services. So if while you're in college, you're engaging in some of those and you have more than $400 of net income, then you do need to file a return, even if your income doesn't exceed the overall standard deduction.
Wait a sec, but Brette, what if I just got paid cash for babysitting?
It's a good idea to file if it's more than $400.
Okay, so I have to keep some kind of record, or
you should be keeping records of how much you're being paid, including cash payments made to you.
okay.
Another question I get related to students is about scholarships and income that you may, or non-income, the taxability of scholarships. Generally, scholarship money is not taxable if it is used to pay tuition, fees, books, required supplies that are not optional for the class. You have to be degree seeking and attending a qualified institution, which many people meet those requirements. So really the determination is generally made about whether the expenses are qualified expenses. You should receive a 1098-T from your institution, which should outline how much was spent on qualified expenses. if they are paying, if a scholarship designates that it's paying for things like room and board, then that income would be taxable. Scholarship used to pay for unqualified expenses, which, like I said, is primarily tuition fees, required expenses, is taxable income.
What if I pay that money back to the college to pay for my dorm?
So that would be for an unqualified expense, and therefore it would be taxable regardless of the source. You has to be for a qualified expense, which would be tuition, fees, and other things. There are a couple of credits and an adjustment that you might want to consider if you're a student. I would encourage everyone to look at the American Opportunity Tax Credit first. It has a limited duration that you can qualify for this credit. You must be pursuing a degree. You must be enrolled at least half-time for one academic period. You can't have finished your first 4 years at the beginning of the tax year. You must be still pursuing your first 4 years of school, and you only qualify for this credit for 4 years. And you can't have a felony drug conviction at the end of the tax year. But this credit is $2,500 for a student, and it is partially refundable. So if this credit satisfies your taxes, tax due, and there's still some money left, that can become part of a refund. So another reason you may want to file. The next credit that you might, if you have already used up your eligibility for the American Opportunity Tax Credit, or you don't meet one of the requirements as a part of that, then you might consider the Lifetime Learning Credit. You have to be enrolled in an eligible institution, and it enrolled at least one academic period, but you don't necessarily have to be enrolled at least half-time. So that's not a requirement there, and you don't have to be pursuing a degree. So if you obtain some college credits to enhance your skills or something like that, you may qualify for this credit. It is not refundable though, and its maximum credit is 20% of the expenses up to $10,000. So the max credit is $2,000, and as I said, it's not refundable. And then if you've already completed school or you're paying interest, you may also want to look at an adjustment for student loan interest paid. You will get a 1098 that indicates how much interest you paid on these qualifying student loans. You can take up to $2,500 in interest paid. And I think there's a common misconception that you can only do this if you're itemizing deductions. And I just want to clarify that student loan interest is an adjustment. It goes on your Schedule 1, and it can be taken whether or not you take a standard deduction or you itemize.
Wait, oh, Brett, I'm confused.
Oh,
What is
no.
Schedule 1 and why? Wait, do I need to know where to put it on the tax return?
So I think there's, first of all, Schedule 1 is a form that is attached to the first 2 pages of the tax return, or 1040. And I would encourage anyone who doesn't know, it goes on that Schedule 1 if you have student loan interest. But if you don't know where to put it, or you're confused about the tax software you're using, I would really encourage someone to seek professional assistance with filing their tax return. There are, I think Jennifer may have some information on some resources that can help that don't charge you to prepare your tax return, and they're accurate returns. And so I would really encourage you to seek those resources. And then just quickly, I'll talk about being a dependent while you're in college. If you have not reached the age of 24, your parents and your parents are providing more than half your support, and you didn't earn more than $4,700, which that number changes each year, but they may be able to claim you, and they may be able to claim an earned income tax credit for you. Now, after you reach age 24, in fact, at any age, if more than half of your support is being provided, you can still be claimed as a dependent by your parents. There's another credit called the credit for other dependents, and that doesn't have an age limit if you meet the other dependent rules. So that's another thing that a tax preparer can help you discern whether or not you are being claimed. Because if you're being claimed by your parents, the standard deduction that I mentioned earlier may be slightly adjusted. Generally, if you're being claimed as a dependent, your standard deduction is the greater of $1,250 or your earned income plus $400. You don't need to claim the full standard deduction if you're being claimed as a dependent. And so that's something that a tax preparer can help you figure out and determine what you need to do. Jennifer, do you have some information on where they can go to get some of that assistance?
Yes. So the IRS has a program that's called Free File online. It can be, it's available to everybody who's watching this here at gross incomes less than $79,000. However, you need to check carefully to figure out if you need to file an Arkansas tax return or an Oklahoma tax return, which of the providers on that Free File program are also allowing you to e-file the tax return for the state so that you come out with a zero bill to the software provider. That can be a little tricky, and it changes every year who provides that for free. And we have provided the hyperlink here where it says learn more about Free File. There is the link about how to do your tax return for free through the IRS website. If you go outside the website, it's really much harder to find a free option. So we recommend that you go there. And then if you're not comfortable doing your own tax return and you want guidance, someone to do it for you, VITA, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, has a huge number of sites all across the country. We have upwards of 80 sites just in Arkansas. They have lots and lots of sites in Oklahoma. We have lists online. We have lists in person. We can tell you where to go. We can give their phone numbers, their hours, their locations, or you can go online, and we've provided the link here to finding it yourself. We really want you to use VITA. They undergo mandatory training, they undergo mandatory testing, and they prepare the most accurate returns in the industry. And you know, if you can't find them, we can help you do it. So we're strongly recommending you go that route. So we got a question here that says, any tips for choosing the right platform for filing taxes as a student? Well, if you go, first off, you're going to file a pretty darn simple tax return. So if you can find the option that you're comfortable with on the Free File, that's a good option. We always recommend that everybody go to VITA. So if I don't want to provide you tips for choosing a tax return preparer outside of those two options, because you're going to pay money, you're going to have a simple tax return, and the national brands that you know about charge a lot of money, and your tax refund may be only $375, but they're going to charge you $435 to do the tax return. So go to VITA. They love you. They love students. And we have them available for you in Arkansas. So what do you need to file your tax return? We're going to assume you have a really simple tax return. You got a W-2, maybe you got a 1099, and you have that 1098 from the tuition. So you're going to stack these statements up before you start doing your tax return. You might also have that student loan interest statement. Do a little checklist in your head. Make sure you're prepared before you either go to VITA or do it yourself. Don't leave anything off. because then you'll get in a tangle with the IRS and you'll be coming to us and saying, ah. So we want everybody. If you're a student, you know how to use a computer. And we want everybody to create an ID.me account. Only you can create your own ID.me account. Only your mom can create her own ID.me account. If she doesn't know how to use a computer, give her some hints. Your dad has to create his own ID.me account. You must be 18 years or older. We've tried to convince the IRS to let students, for example, who are 16, 17, have jobs and need to file a tax return. We really wish you could use this ID.me account. We wish that, other dependents who don't even file their own tax returns can use an ID.me account. There are special student discounts online through ID.me. So create the account. And if you qualify as a student, you have to verify your student status. And Joan tells me there are special student discounts. We're not going to tell you what they are because we want you to create an ID.me account and look it up. There's a little thing hanging over you, like go check it out and see what discounts you can get. Next, if you have filed your tax return, you need to wait 2 to 3 weeks. And at that point, there should be some activity on the irs.gov website. And you can short circuit without going through ID.me. You can do it there too, but you can go just to where's my refund and find out the status of what's going on with that tax return. I think you can check for 3 years and it might be 4 now, but you can check. You have to have what year, you have to have some information from the tax return in front of you to answer the questions. So don't go to it until you have the tax return in your hands. So you can put in your filing status, your expected refund, the year of the refund. I think those are the elements, but don't try to guess because it won't answer if you don't have the exact right data for that, for using that tool. Now, if you keep checking it, first off, don't check more than once a day, but if you keep checking it and nothing happens, call us and we can discuss what might be going on with this refund. One element that is very, very common, if you're a first-time filer, the IRS often makes you identify yourself separately by matching that return. Keep a copy of your return with your social security card and your driver's license, and that's a separate process. The IRS now has a link when it says your tax return is in processing, where it says, oh, you may need to identify. They're also going to send you a letter, but all that process takes a few weeks. And so as soon as you discover that you need to verify your identity, get on it and verify your identity. Otherwise, your refund's going to be lost in space, stuck at the IRS. We are working on a couple of cases where we're trying to get refunds for 2018 and 2019 that were filed way back then, and the taxpayers never verified their identity. So they're going, why didn't I get? Well, you didn't verify your identity. So we have to go through that process to release those refunds. Remember, you can send us questions at any time. A question just came in. It says, what types of scholarships do you think are considered taxable? Brett, do you want to answer that question?
Well, I would say it's really case specific. And I would say particularly scholarships that say this scholarship is to pay your room and board. Those are going to probably be taxable. If it's kind of a general scholarship that's could be applied towards allowable expenses. It's going to depend on the amounts of scholarships you received and how much your qualified expenses are, which you'll receive information about that on your 1098. So I would say it's really case specific. I don't want to necessarily provide a specific answer, but I would say that if it says, hey, this is to help you pay for your room and board kind of scholarship before you apply, that one's going to be taxable.
Well, what if I just don't tell the IRS?
Well, the IRS has a matching system. These 1098s are filed with the IRS by your institution. And so they're going to be able to determine some of that information. And so it's always a good idea to file accurate returns, accurate information with the IRS, because they do have a verification method that they're going to use.
So essentially they're going to catch me.
Yes.
Okay, so be complete on your tax return, and that goes for everybody on any topic.
Correct.
So you can call us if you have questions, if you have questions about what we said here, if you have any kind of questions about tax related matters. We have a dedicated phone line that we're calling the tax helpline. And if you really want to help and be represented by either Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma because you live in Oklahoma, or Legal Aid of Arkansas, here is the way to do it. On this screen, we're going to hold this up for a few more seconds. And if you don't live in either of those places, feel free to call us anyways, and we will figure out what your tax problem is. And it's possible we need to find you an LITC in one of the other 48 states because they're all over the country. Remember, you can continue to put questions in at any time. And we're going to sign off now, and we will look forward to hearing from you. And thanks for participating today.